He's been in the NFL with the Miami Dolphins, with the Cincinnati Bengals, with the Minnesota Vikings. He spent time in college at places like Hawaii, in Wisconsin, Bowie State, where he was a defensive coordinator at the Division II ranks. So there's a lot to get to because this is someone, Hunt, that we really don't know. We don't know him as a household name, which is okay. That's not saying anything negative right now. This is definitely a wait-and-see approach. So now we're going to react to the news that Daronte Jones is going to be the next coordinator over at LSU.
Yeah, I mean, look, for me to tell you that I know a ton about Daronte Jones and what his thoughts are on defensive scheming, and I don't. What I know is that it's an underwhelming hire on paper. That doesn't mean anything, but on paper, it's underwhelming. It's a guy who has not called defenses at this level ever, has not called a defense in many years, and that's the negative side of this. Now, the positive side is he's worked for some really smart people. Dave Aranda, Mike Zimmer, been in the NFL at the highest level, had some success defending the pass at Wisconsin. But, and the other part of it that's positive is that he worked in Louisiana a little bit at the high school level, and so should have some relationships in the state. But
worked at Nicholls State as well. We mentioned that yesterday, so at least he does know the lay of the land. That is important because I did mention throughout this process, one of my main goals was to obviously get someone that was better at communicating with the players. They looked absolutely lost last year. That's no secret. But also someone who would be a really good recruiter, having ties in Louisiana, already kind of knowing the lay of the land. I do think that's important. Having someone who has spent time at a major university like UCLA, like Wisconsin, that part of it is important as well. So we don't know what kind of recruiter he is because it's been a long time, right? We'll have to go back and look in the archives of what he can do there. But at least
I've seen a couple of interviews, and I think he'll be just fine.
Right. So Coach O joined T-Bob this morning on Off the Bench. Here is Coach O on Daronte Jones.
Obviously it's not finalized yet, but I feel really good about the process and which is going. And Daronte interviewed yesterday. He did a very good job. Very impressive. Knows the same defense that I'm used to, same coverages, same fronts, very sound, very articulate. I think he'd do a great job presenting the defense to our team, and he's an up-and-coming star in the coaching ranks.
So the way this thing has gone, Coach O, just like many of us, not official, not finalized.
Yeah, but he's out on the air talking about it. It's surprising to me. I've never seen a head coach handle a coaching vacancy like this with being as transparent as he has been on the radio. I think it's fine. But
what was the thing that everyone said about Les? Need to be more transparent. Well,
I don't care what you do. I mean, I don't want you to sound like a doofus, like some of the people I've talked about on here that I just think are just disingenuous, almost not believable. And I don't want you to treat people like a jerk. Like Nick Saban just treats people poorly in press conferences, and I don't have any use for that. Now, the vast majority of the population thinks that the working media are idiots and that the coach shouldn't have to answer the question anyway, and I get that that's how people side. I tend to think people are doing their jobs, and to treat them poorly I don't like. But I don't care what you say in an interview. You can say anything you want. I think Paul Maneri is exceptionally transparent and talks about things. Yeah. And I think that I've covered coaches who never said anything. Les and Johnny Jones never said a word. Just went up there, hard-fought battle. Guys are good. Nobody's hurt. I don't really care.
Nobody's nicked.
Just go win. Just go win.
All right, so when you start to look at the resume, we mentioned where he's been in the NFL. Of course, we do a quick deep dive into the stats. He was with the Miami Dolphins, where in 2016 they finished 15th in pass defense, 16th in 2017. You go to the Cincinnati Bengals, they were dead last in 2018. They were 32nd in the NFL. Now they improved to 21st in 2019. You take a look at the Minnesota Vikings, 29th in 2020. Okay, so those numbers, obviously he's not calling the plays, but those numbers right there, you did see some improvement in Cincinnati. You didn't get a second sample size of improvement in Minnesota. This is someone that obviously specializes in the defensive backfield. We talked about it yesterday. When you look at what LSU has in place as far as defensive coaches, well, the only defensive coach they have right now as far as full-time staff member is in the defensive backfield. So you would assume, okay, this is kind of the Bill Busch spot where you hire your coordinator. Now you still got to go get a coach to coach the linebackers and one to coach the defensive line. And when you look at having two secondary guys like LSU has, which pretty good ones, I mean, you've got some surplus there. You got to go, in my opinion, get someone a little bit more veteran maybe in those two positions, at least one of those positions. And, of course, Coach O is going to be very hands-on with the defensive line.
For sure. And O said this morning that Daronte Jones is going to coach safeties, so he's going to work with Corey in the defensive backfield. The synergy there has got to be like it was 2 years ago and not like it was last year. That's number one. We saw that thing broke down from the shoot. The first game, you set an SEC passing record against you, and it never got any better. So they've got to get on the same page there. I think that it'll help that the coordinator is there with Corey as opposed to the coordinator going to the safeties coach and the corners coach. So that's probably a good thing. But yeah, they got to hire 2 more guys on the defensive staff.
All right, so here's Coach O on the staff right now.
Both with Coach Raymond, Corey's going to coach the corners. If Daronte gets the job, he'll coach the safeties, which will have some new safeties there, 2 young, great safeties. So I think it's perfect. The front will be handled by Daronte, but I'll have a lot of say-so on what we're doing up front, which I like. We'll bring an outstanding linebacker coach. I have a linebacker coach coming in today for an interview. I have a defensive line coach coming in tomorrow for an interview. And if everything goes good, we'll have our staff pretty soon.
Now we'll start to speculate if this is the guy. Is he having a say-so in who comes in to coach the linebackers and to coach the defensive line?
I would think he would sit in on some meetings and if there's some sort of red flag disaster. I mean, O's got to realize after what he watched last year, it's not all about just assembling the pieces and then trying to slam them all together. They all have to work together, and it didn't work last year on either side of the ball. So I think it would be naive and bordering on incorrect to just grab 2 guys and throw them in the mix. I think everybody needs to be on the same page here.
There has to be a synergy. There has to be. I've been in too many locker rooms when the coaches didn't get along and it took away from the team because they were having a pissing contest. That's the best way I can put it, each and every day. And it's like, get over it, guys. And I'm talking about college and pros. I've been in every locker room. Now, I've been in a locker room like in 2012 in Denver where everybody was on the same page. Every single person had the same goal and process in mind, and there was never an issue. In fact, I mean, the coaches and players could sit down and have, social talks, and we could talk about whatever we wanted. John Fox would go, and he'd invite us to dinner, and Elway would invite us to dinner. That's the culture that was built there in Denver, and it's really good when you're in that culture. And when that's what 2019 LSU had. Joe Brady and Steve Ensminger, they were buds. They were boys, right? You saw them dapping it up there, and that's what they tried to get. They got guys from Carolina on the offensive side of the football that had a relationship together. They know each other. They worked well together, right? James Craig has worked with DJ Mangus. Mickey Joseph has worked with DJ Mangus, okay? So they know him. You feel good about that part of it. Now, when you're putting this defensive staff together, chemistry is important. I think it's really important because you don't want guys on the different pages because we've seen how lost in translation some of those things can get, right? We saw Bill Bush and Corey Raymond, right? That whatever happened, right? You said it. 2019, 2020 was different. Whatever happened, that was lost, okay? So you move on from that. Well, now, if this is the hire, if Jones is the guy, Corey Raymond obviously is on staff. Come together, everybody have the same thought process in mind as far as who you want to be defensively. And I'm talking about personality-wise, scheme-wise, everything's got to be on the same page.
Yeah, and I'm not telling you got to hire the good old boys network and you can only hire best friends. But
working relationship is important.
You have to bring everyone in. You have to vet backgrounds and talk to guys who have worked with these people and see how they get along with people. They brought a coordinator in here a couple years ago that nobody liked working with. Okay? So, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
So you have to figure out how guys work in a functioning side of the ball room and get it together.
Because that was the biggest thing last year was nobody on the defensive side. Now, the offense found a way, and it wasn't 2019 by any means, but at least they finished 5th in the conference. It was respectable. The defense, it didn't look like anybody on any level coached together. It seems like everybody coached their individual positions, and nothing came together because everyone was doing something different. And that tells you that there was no chemistry in the coaching staff as far as the defensive staff.
Well,
right?
look what happened. They axed the safeties coach on the back end. They axed the coordinator who was in the middle, and the defensive line coach retired. And that's the head coach's forte. all three parts of the defense moved on. There's no like trying to read between the lines here or guess. The whole thing broke down.
Daronte Jones is going to be the guy to try to put it all back together. Apparently, like Coach O said, nothing's officially official because we've been there before, but this does seem like the guy. And, in fact, Coach O laying out what his role would be as far as coaching the safeties with Corey Raymond there. And hopefully that wall that separates the corners and the safeties room becomes one of those ones like a garage door where you can just lift it up. Because I'd love for them to be in the same room.
You can hit it with that Miley Cyrus wrecking ball.
Never something I thought you would say here on the radio.
I'm hip. I'm with it.